They called him Old Man, made jokes about his mop being heavier than the weights they lifted, and filmed TikToks mocking the gym janitor who couldn't afford a membership. The bodybuilders thought the quiet cleaner was just another failure who ended up mopping floors. Until one night when their bullying went too far, and the man they'd been humiliating showed them what real strength looked like. Welcome to Stories of Secret Heroes. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden strength and earned respect, tell me in the comments from which city are you watching this video today. And if you believe true strength comes from character, not just muscle, hit that subscribe button and help us share stories that matter. Iron Temple Fitness occupied 3 floors of a converted warehouse in the heart of downtown, its floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing expensive equipment and even more expensive memberships. This wasn't a place for casual fitness. It catered to serious bodybuilders, fitness influencers, and anyone with enough money to train alongside social media celebrities who documented every rep for their millions of followers. The gym operated 24/7, which meant someone had to clean it around the clock. That someone was Miguel Santos, a 52-year-old man who arrived every evening at 8 p.m. sharp and worked until 4 a.m., keeping the Temple of Muscle pristine for the next day's worship. Miguel was invisible in the way that service workers often are in spaces designed for the wealthy and beautiful. He moved quietly between the machines, mopping floors, wiping down equipment, and restocking towels while the late-night crowd pushed their bodies to Instagram-worthy extremes. He wore a simple grey uniform with Iron Temple maintenance embroidered on the back, carried his supplies in a worn cart, and never bothered anyone. What the members didn't notice was how Miguel moved. He didn't just clean around the heavy bags, he positioned himself with the subtle footwork of someone who understood angles and distance. When he wiped down the pull-up bars, his grip showed calluses that didn't come from janitorial work. When he lifted the 45-pound plates to clean underneath them, he moved the weight with an ease that suggested much heavier things had once been routine. The late-night crowd at Iron Temple was a specific breed. These were the serious lifters who came after their day jobs, the aspiring influencers building their brands, and the trust fund bodybuilders who treated fitness like a full-time career. They lived on supplements, spoke in rep counts, and measured success in likes and follower counts. Among this crowd, Miguel was less than invisible. He was a cautionary tale, a middle-aged man pushing a mop cart while they pushed themselves toward greatness. They saw him as what happened when you didn't commit, when you let life defeat you, when you settled for cleaning up after real athletes instead of being one yourself. It started small, the way cruelty often does. A snicker when Miguel bent over to clean under a bench press, a comment about how the old man struggled with his cart while they effortlessly moved hundreds of pounds, a joke about how cleaning equipment was probably the closest he'd ever get to actually using it. The ringleader was Tyler T-Force Morrison, a 28-year-old fitness influencer with 800,000 TikTok followers and a sponsorship deal with a supplement company. Tyler had built his brand on motivation mixed with aggressive masculinity, pushing his audience to stop making excuses and be better than average. To Tyler, Miguel represented everything his followers should avoid becoming. "Check it out," Tyler would say to his phone camera, panning over to Miguel mopping near the deadlift platform. "This is what giving up looks like, boys. This is what happens when you don't chase greatness." His followers ate it up, commenting with fire emojis and facts responses. The content featuring Miguel became a regular part of Tyler's videos. Motivation Monday posts comparing Tyler's squat max to what the janitor probably benches. Transformation Tuesday content showing the difference between winners and losers. Work Hard Wednesday videos filmed while Miguel cleaned, with captions about who's really putting in work here. Miguel never responded to the mockery. He continued his routine with the same quiet professionalism, finishing his cleaning checklist and clocking out without engaging with the commentary. His silence seemed to encourage them, as if his lack of reaction proved their point about his defeated spirit. The other members joined in gradually. Some felt uncomfortable but didn't want to be excluded from the group. Others genuinely found it funny. Here was this old guy cleaning their sweat while they built empires. A few took their own videos, creating a running social media narrative about the Iron Temple janitor, who represented everything they were working to avoid becoming. Tyler's girlfriend, Brittany, a fitness model with her own substantial following, started including Miguel in her content too. Day-in-the-life vlogs that showed her training while some people just clean up after us. Live streams where she'd gesture toward Miguel and make jokes about different life choices leading to different outcomes. Miguel became a meme in their circle. The cautionary tale, the motivation, the proof that their lifestyle of discipline and dedication was superior to whatever had led someone to push a mop at 52. The mockery might have stayed at the level of social media content, but Tyler's brand was built on pushing boundaries. His audience rewarded aggression, and he was always looking for ways to create more engaging content. Miguel's quiet acceptance of the abuse had become boring. Tyler needed to push harder to get the reaction that would drive engagement. It started with more direct confrontation. Tyler would work out near wherever Miguel was cleaning, making loud comments about people who peaked in high school and guys who never learned to fight for what they want. He'd position his phone to capture Miguel's reaction, hoping for something more than silent professionalism. When that didn't work, the content became more invasive. Tyler started filming closer to Miguel, narrating his cleaning routine with mock sports commentary. And here we see the janitor in his natural habitat, folks. Watch as he demonstrates the complex technique of moving a mop bucket. The other members began participating more actively. Someone started a hashtag, janitor motivation. Photos of Miguel working became memes about what failure looks like. His cleaning cart was photoshopped into motivational posters with captions like, "This could be you if you don't commit." Miguel's shift became a source of entertainment. Members would time their workouts to coincide with his cleaning schedule, creating a live audience for Tyler's content. The mockery became ritualized, expected, part of the late-night gym culture. But Miguel never broke character, never responded, never gave them the reaction they were looking for. His professionalism in the face of systematic humiliation only seemed to frustrate Tyler more. That's when Tyler decided to escalate to physical interaction. It was a Thursday night in November when Tyler finally crossed the line from mockery to physical confrontation. The gym was busier than usual. A group of out-of-town bodybuilders had joined the regular crowd, providing Tyler with a larger audience for his content. Miguel was cleaning the area around the heavy bags when Tyler approached with his phone recording. "Hey janitor," Tyler called out, using the name he'd assigned Miguel in his content. "My followers want to know, have you ever actually trained a day in your life, or is mopping your only form of exercise?" Miguel continued cleaning, his movements steady and professional. He'd learned that engagement only encouraged more harassment. "I'm talking to you, old man," Tyler said, stepping closer. "It's rude to ignore someone when they're trying to help you get motivated." Miguel straightened up and looked at Tyler directly for the first time in months. "I'm just trying to do my job, sir. Please let me finish cleaning this area." Tyler smiled for his camera. "See that, boys? He talks, and check out that voice. Sounds defeated, doesn't it? Sounds like someone who gave up on life and settled for cleaning up after real men." The crowd gathered, phones out, sensing that something different was happening. Tyler was performing now, feeding off their attention and the live comments streaming in from his audience. "Tell you what, janitor," Tyler said, moving even closer. "How about we settle this like men? You think you're tough enough to clean up after us? Let's see how tough you really are. One round on the mats. Show these people you're not completely pathetic." Miguel shook his head quietly. "I just want to finish my work and go home." "Of course you do," Tyler laughed, "because you know what would happen. You know you'd get embarrassed in front of everyone. You know you're exactly what I've been telling people you are, a quitter who never learned to fight." That's when Tyler made his mistake. He reached out and shoved Miguel's shoulder, hard enough to make him step backward. "Come on, old man, show us you've got something left in you, or admit that you're exactly the failure we all know you are." Miguel set down his mop carefully. When he looked up, something had changed in his expression. Not anger, exactly, more like the quiet recognition that a line had been crossed. "You really want to do this?" Miguel asked, his voice still calm but carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. Tyler, sensing victory, grinned at his camera. "Boys, I think the janitor just grew a pair. This is about to be the best content we've ever made." What happened next took exactly 8 seconds, though everyone who witnessed it would remember it in slow motion for the rest of their lives. Tyler threw a sloppy right hand, the kind of punch that worked fine for intimidating people who wouldn't fight back. Miguel moved slightly to his left, and Tyler's fist hit nothing but air. Before Tyler could reset, Miguel had stepped inside his guard and applied a wrestling takedown so smooth and effortless that Tyler was on the ground before his brain could process what had happened. The submission that followed was educational. Miguel's arm snaked around Tyler's neck in a rear-naked choke that was textbook perfect, tight enough to control, positioned exactly where it needed to be to cut off blood flow, applied with the kind of precision that comes from muscle memory built over thousands of repetitions. Tyler tapped frantically within 3 seconds, but Miguel held the position for a moment longer, not to hurt him, but to make sure everyone in the room understood that this wasn't luck or adrenaline. This was skill. When Miguel released the hold and stood up, Tyler remained on the ground, gasping and humiliated in front of his cameras and his audience. Miguel straightened his uniform, picked up his mop and said quietly, "I really do just want to finish my work and go home." The gym was completely silent except for the sound of Tyler catching his breath and the quiet hum of the ventilation system. Every phone that had been recording was still recording, but the narrative had changed completely. Marcus Rodriguez, a personal trainer who'd been working at Iron Temple for 5 years, was the first to break the silence. He'd been watching the harassment for months, feeling uncomfortable but not knowing how to intervene. Now, staring at Miguel, he was trying to process what he'd just witnessed. "Jesus Christ," Marcus said quietly. "Miguel, where did you learn to do that?" Miguel continued cleaning, his movements returning to their usual professional rhythm. "I used to compete." "Compete in what?" someone called out. Miguel paused, considering whether to answer. Finally, he said, "Mixed martial arts. A long time ago." Tyler, still on the ground, managed to croak out, "Bullshit." Marcus pulled out his phone, but not to record more mockery. He opened Google and typed, "Miguel Santos, MMA fighter." The search results that appeared made him audibly gasp. The first hit was a Wikipedia page for Miguel El Silencio Santos, former UFC middleweight contender, with a professional record of 23-4-1. The second was a YouTube compilation of his greatest knockouts. The third was a documentary about his 2018 retirement due to chronic injuries. Marcus turned his phone screen toward the crowd. Holy shit, guys, this is Miguel the Silent Santos. He was ranked number 3 in the world 5 years ago. The information spread through the gym like wildfire. Within minutes, everyone with a phone was pulling up Miguel's fight footage, watching highlight reels of the man they'd been mocking submit and knock out professional fighters in front of crowds of thousands. Miguel El Silencio Santos hadn't just been a fighter, he'd been a legend. His nickname came from his habit of never trash-talking opponents, never celebrating victories with showboating, and conducting interviews with quiet professionalism that stood out in a sport built on manufactured drama. His record told the story of a career that had reached the highest levels of the sport. Wins over former champions, title shots, main event fights that had drawn millions of viewers. His highlight reel showed knockouts delivered with surgical precision, submissions applied with the kind of technical perfection that fight analysts called artwork. The documentary that Marcus found revealed why Miguel's career had ended: a series of injuries, concussions, torn ligaments, accumulated damage from 15 years of professional fighting had forced him into retirement at 47. The film showed him struggling with the transition to civilian life, dealing with medical bills, adjusting to life without the only career he'd ever known. But what it didn't show was the financial reality that had led him to Iron Temple. While Miguel had earned good money during his peak years, most of it had gone to medical expenses, training costs, and the tax problems that many fighters faced when they didn't have proper financial management. He'd invested badly, trusted the wrong people, and found himself starting over at 50 with a body that couldn't fight anymore, but skills that no civilian job could use. The cleaning job at Iron Temple had been a way to stay connected to the fitness world while earning steady money with health insurance. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work that let him support himself while his body recovered from decades of professional violence. Now, as the gym members watched footage of Miguel's fights, the contrast between his legend status and his current situation became starkly clear. This wasn't a failed athlete or someone who'd never committed to greatness. This was a man who'd reached the absolute pinnacle of one of the world's most demanding sports and was quietly dealing with the consequences. Tyler, finally back on his feet, stared at the phone screens showing Miguel's knockouts with the dawning realization of what he'd done. For months, he'd been mocking a man who could have seriously injured him at any moment but had chosen restraint. He'd built his brand on tormenting someone whose athletic achievements dwarfed anything Tyler would ever accomplish. The social media content that had seemed so entertaining an hour ago now looked like what it actually was: wealthy amateurs mocking a professional warrior who was too dignified to defend himself. The gym remained silent for several minutes as people processed what they'd learned. Miguel continued cleaning, working around the crowd that had formed, acting as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Tyler was the first to approach him, his confidence completely deflated. "Miguel," he said quietly, I had no idea who you were." Miguel looked up from wiping down a machine. Would it have mattered? The question hung in the air. Tyler wanted to say yes, that he would never have mocked a former UFC contender, but the honesty of Miguel's gaze made him realize how that answer would sound. "I don't know," Tyler admitted. "Maybe not, but it should have. It's not less important because it's not what I used to do." Marcus stepped forward. "Miguel, man, I owe you an apology too. I watched this happening for months and never said anything. That was wrong." Other members began approaching, some to apologize, others just to express their shock and admiration. Miguel accepted their words with the same quiet dignity he'd shown during the harassment, neither dismissive nor particularly grateful. He seemed to understand that their changed behavior was about their discovery of his past, not a real recognition of his worth as a person. "I should delete all that content," Tyler said. "The videos, the posts, everything." Miguel considered this. "That's up to you, but maybe leave some of it up." "Why?" "Because maybe some of your followers need to learn what I had to learn tonight. That how you treat people when you think they can't fight back tells you who you really are." Tyler stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean that for months. You treated me like I was less than human because you thought I was weak. But strength isn't about what you can do to people who can't stop you. Strength is about what you choose not to do when you could." Miguel returned to his cleaning. "I could have ended any of this whenever I wanted, but I chose not to, because this job matters to me, and because hurting people doesn't solve problems." The lesson was clear, and it hit harder than any of Miguel's former knockouts ever had. Over the following weeks, Iron Temple became a different place. The culture of mockery and social media cruelty that had defined the late-night crowd disappeared almost overnight. Members who had participated in the harassment either apologized genuinely or stopped coming entirely. Tyler made a public video acknowledging what he'd done, explaining what he'd learned, and changing the entire direction of his content. Instead of motivation through mockery, he began focusing on respect.
humility, and recognizing value in all forms of honest work. His follower count initially dropped, as people unused to his new message moved on, but it stabilized with an audience that appreciated the more mature content. The gym management, learning about the systematic harassment one of their employees had endured, implemented new policies about member conduct and social media filming. Miguel was offered a promotion to head of maintenance with a significant raise, which he accepted quietly and professionally. But the most significant change was in how people treated not just Miguel, but all the service workers at Iron Temple. The cleaning staff, front desk employees, and maintenance workers suddenly found themselves being acknowledged as human beings, rather than invisible background elements. Miguel's routine remained largely the same. He still arrived at 8 p.m., still cleaned the equipment and mopped the floors, still worked quietly and professionally. But now members nodded respectfully when he passed. Some asked about his day, and a few former fighters who joined the gym sought him out for technical advice. He never talked about his fighting career unless directly asked, and when he did, it was with the same understated professionalism he brought to everything else. Miguel had learned long ago that your past achievements only mattered if they helped you be better in the present. 3 months after the confrontation, a young amateur fighter named Danny joined Iron Temple. He was 22, hungry, and convinced that social media fame was the key to success in modern fighting. He'd heard about the incident with Tyler, but didn't really understand its significance. Danny made the mistake of treating Miguel like the other members once had, politely but dismissively, seeing only the uniform and not the person wearing it. He posted a few Instagram stories that echoed Tyler's old content, positioning himself as a serious athlete training around regular people. It was Marcus who pulled Danny aside and showed him the footage of Miguel's career. Danny's reaction was the same as everyone else's: shock, embarrassment, and a sudden understanding of what respect actually meant. The next evening, Danny approached Miguel during his cleaning rounds. "Mr. Santos," he said respectfully, "I wanted to apologize for my posts, and I was wondering if maybe you could watch me train sometime. Give me some feedback." Miguel looked at the young fighter, eager, dedicated, but making the same mistakes Miguel had seen in dozens of prospects over the years. "What's your record?" 6-1 amateur. "I'm trying to turn pro next year." Miguel nodded. "Bring your gear tomorrow night after I finish cleaning. We'll work for an hour." That hour turned into a weekly session, then 2, then an informal mentorship that transformed Danny's understanding of fighting and professionalism. Miguel taught him that technical skill without character was worthless, that respect was earned through how you treated everyone, not just people who could help your career. Under Miguel's guidance, Danny's fighting improved dramatically, but more importantly, his approach to the sport matured. He stopped posting content that put down others, started acknowledging everyone who helped his training, and began to understand that strength was about lifting others up, not tearing them down. A year after Tyler's confrontation with Miguel, Iron Temple had become known for something unusual in the fitness world: a culture of mutual respect. The story of the gym janitor, who was actually a UFC legend, had spread throughout the local fighting community, but more importantly, the lesson behind it had taken root. Miguel still worked the night shift, but his role had evolved. He was officially the head of maintenance, but informally, he'd become something like a wise elder for the gym's community. Young fighters sought his advice, experienced athletes appreciated his perspective, and even non-fighters found value in his approach to discipline and humility. Tyler's content had evolved too. His channel now focused on real strength, featuring not just physical achievements, but stories of people who demonstrated character, resilience, and grace under pressure. He'd interviewed several of the gym's service workers, highlighting their stories and contributions. His audience had grown to appreciate content that built people up instead of tearing them down. The gym installed a small plaque in the training area. Respect is earned through character, not just achievement. It didn't mention Miguel by name, but everyone who trained there understood the story behind it. Miguel never returned to fighting professionally. His body couldn't handle it, and he'd made peace with that chapter of his life being closed. But he'd found a different kind of purpose in showing people that dignity wasn't dependent on job titles, that respect was a choice, and that real strength was often quiet. Late at night, after the last members had left and Miguel was finishing his cleaning rounds, he sometimes paused at the heavy bags he'd once used to prepare for world-class opponents. He didn't hit them anymore. His hands couldn't take the impact, but he'd touch the worn leather and remember what it felt like to compete at the highest level. But he'd also remember what it felt like to be mocked for honest work, and how that experience had taught him something more valuable than any championship: that your worth as a person isn't determined by what you used to do or what others think of what you do now. It's determined by how you treat people when you think no one important is watching. Miguel Santos still works at Iron Temple, still arrives at 8 p.m. sharp, still maintains the equipment that helps others pursue their fitness goals, but he's no longer invisible, no longer a target for mockery, no longer seen as a cautionary tale. The members who train there understand that they're in the presence of someone who achieved greatness in one of the world's most demanding sports, and then found a different kind of greatness in how he handled its aftermath. They've learned that the man pushing the mop cart once knocked out professional fighters in front of millions of viewers, but more importantly, they've learned that his current work is just as valuable and deserving of respect. Tyler still trains at Iron Temple, but his approach to content and life has completely changed. He's become one of Miguel's most vocal advocates, regularly featuring stories about respecting service workers and recognizing that everyone has a story worth knowing. His transformation from bully to ally has become part of his brand, showing his audience that growth is possible when you're willing to admit you were wrong. The gym culture that once celebrated tearing people down now celebrates building them up.
New members quickly learn the story of Miguel and the lesson it represents. That strength isn't about what you can do to people who seem weaker than you, it's about what you choose not to do when you could. But perhaps the most important part of Miguel's story isn't about his fighting career, or even about how he handled the harassment. It's about the choice he made every night to continue doing his job professionally and with dignity, regardless of how he was treated. Miguel Silencio Santos never needed to prove his toughness in the gym that night. His record spoke for itself to anyone who cared to look. What he proved instead was something more valuable, that real strength is choosing restraint when you could choose violence, choosing dignity when you're offered humiliation, and choosing to be professional when others choose to be cruel. So I ask you, have you ever met someone like Miguel Santos? Someone whose current job didn't reflect their past achievements, but whose character shone through regardless. Someone who chose grace over retaliation, dignity over revenge. Share their story in the comments. Tell us about the service worker, the janitor, the person everyone overlooked who turned out to have a background no one expected. Because here at Stories of Secret Heroes, we know that everyone has a story, and everyone deserves respect regardless of what they do for work. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it with others. Help us honor the quiet strength of those who choose dignity over drama, and remind the world that real toughness isn't about what you can do to others, it's about what you choose not to do when you could. We'll see you in the next story, and until then, remember to treat everyone with respect, because you never know who you might be talking to. The person cleaning your gym might once have been a champion, but more importantly, they're a human being who deserves dignity regardless of their past or present. The real fight isn't in the octagon, it's in how we choose to treat each other when we think no one important is watching.